Is Dr. Robert A. Heineman really D.B. Cooper? We find out today.
Next on AM 1480 WLEA, the Newsmaker Show. Here's Ryan O'Neill.
You remember D.B. Cooper?
I left my parachute in the car, but it's there in the trunk.
The mystery man, Dr. Bob. How you doing today?
Well, so far so good. Thank you for inquiring.
Okay, Congressman Chris Collins.
Yeah.
Yeah. What do you make of it? 'Cause I can't tell you. What do you make of it?
Well, I know him. I've had several meetings with him when he was Erie County executive, and I think the occasion of the meetings were situations where he was getting ready to run for Congress. He's a very tough guy. And frankly, he did a pretty good job as Erie County executive. Erie County eventually, went bankrupt, or the state had to come in and take them over. They had to bring the unions into line because the union pensions and things and other benefits were way out of line. And basically, he helped to get Erie County back on a solid footing. So the guy has some real skills. And he's a very tough fellow. So the press conference he held on Wednesday, he clearly wanted to state his position that he was not going to step down, because that would be hanging in the background of all these discussions. Well, why doesn't he resign? Why doesn't he step aside? He made it very plain he is not about to step aside. So now we have a race here between him and I don't know who the Democrats put up. Do you have any idea?
Mm-mm.
Now, this is kind of interesting. My understanding there is a Democrat opposing him, but you run into these situations where people feel there's no need to put an opposition candidate up, and then all of a sudden things just fall apart for the majority party. So if the Democrats have somebody in there, they're halfway capable, I suppose they'd have a shot. I think the district is pretty heavily Republican, though, so Collins probably still has a pretty good shot. But the other question then becomes, how guilty is he? And obviously you're innocent until proven guilty. And this whole insider trading thing is really a very ambiguous kind of area in criminal law. And the Supreme Court a number of times has come back and I think narrowed it. I don't know. The other side of it is, of course, the prosecution is from a Republican administration. So they must feel that they have some pretty solid evidence. It is kind of interesting, though, they waited till after the Tuesday election to issue the indictment.
I do want to get to the Tuesday election. I did want to ask you, though, do you think the GOP will bring in David Bellavia, who once wanted to run against, or who once wanted to be congressman in Chris Collins' district? David Bellavia, the war veteran from Batavia?
The guy whose palm cards, all the T's are made into little Christian crosses.
Is that what he does?
Yeah, that guy, yeah.
He was. Well, I think NoJ was big on him.
He was. I can tell you, frankly, that he and NoJ were on the phone many nights, late at night. But
CNN and Bob Lonsberry have said that David Bellavia might be the replacement.
There's not going to be a replacement. Collins is not going to step down.
So
why would there be a replacement? I mean, the trial, I can't believe the trial is going to start within the next few months. Now, maybe it will, in which case, if he's convicted, obviously he's not going to, it seems to me he'll be forced to step aside. But let's see, what is it? The 10th, what is today? The 10th of August, and the election is, the first week or so in November? It's about 60 days, right?
Now you,
90 days.
yes. Now
I don't
you
know.
being in Alfred
Yes.
and Allegheny County.
Yes, fine.
I can't say you're a lot closer to Buffalo, but you guys in Alfred and Wellsville consider Buffalo more of a nearby place than Hornellians who would think of Rochester. Anyways,
Well, I don't think that's true. Unfortunately, we are tied to Buffalo in terms of judicial districts and all that sort of thing. So when you get up in Fillmore, Canandaigua,
and if there's an
Centerville,
accident in
places
Allegheny
like
County, you're more likely to go to UCMC
no,
than Strong.
right? No, that's. It depends. If it's over on the west side of the county, then yeah, Bolivar and places like that are tied a lot closer to Erie County. But no, we're kind of in the middle. We kind of straddle the fence there, Brian. And I think
Humble and modest, good people.
well, right. But most people in Alfred, I think, see Rochester as their major metropolitan area. I don't think there's any question about that. So
Well, what
what's
I
your
was getting
point
to,
here?
Doc-
Yeah, what is?
What I was getting to is you probably have a better sense than the average Hornell resident about how the Buffalo Republicans and Buffalo conservatives feel or felt about Chris Collins before this accusation popped up.
Well,
I can tell you how people feel about Tom Reed, left and right. What do people think of Chris Collins, left
Well,
and right?
I think
left,
he's-
they don't like him. Right, what about the right?
I think he has a lot of support. And of course, again, when you're dealing with a party organization up in Erie County, you're dealing with some Palladino and some of these other guys, frankly, who are not particularly pleasant people. On the other hand, they've had some real success, and you can't discount that. That's about all I can say on that.
Moving on to Lieutenant Governor Kathy Hochul and her opponent, New York City Councilman Jermaine Williams.
Yes.
Kathy Hochul put out a negative TV commercial about Jermaine Williams not being good at personal and business finances.
Right.
Man, did Cynthia Nixon and the other liberals
No, I
rip
think
her on that.
they took a heck of a beating on that, and that's an example of what you run into in these campaigns. And you see this up in Monroe County, and I expect you see it in Erie County and maybe statewide. And that is, you get the endorsements and you hire, and part of the endorsement involves hiring a public relations firm, which very often the people doing the endorsements are part of. They're making money off the ads that you're running. And in this case, you're dealing with a PR firm that really had no idea of the audience that this ad was going to be playing to. I mean, their audience, I think, was middle class, upper middle class audience concerned about somebody deeply in debt. But Jermaine Williams's audience and his constituency and the people who are going to turn out and vote for him, a lot of them are in debt, have in fact had foreclosures. In fact, I believe our president has had one or two bankruptcies in his background. So the point is, I think Hochul's PR effort, and I think Cuomo's, had no sense of the kinds of people who are going to support Williams and Cynthia Nixon. And, it really ran into a firestorm.
Governor Andrew Cuomo sends out numerous press releases a day on a variety of topics. One of the latest stories on Governor Cuomo is the governor did not think that Congressman Chris Collins was capable of representing the district before the scandal broke.
I don't know. It seems to me that Collins is fairly popular in the district, so I guess this is an example of Governor Cuomo saying, "I told you so," huh?
Governor Cuomo also sent out a press release.
Why are we giving his press releases a lot of
he
time
says
here,
he's
right?
not totally slamming the door, ruling out single-payer health care for New York State.
Yeah. Well, so now you've given him that little ad. Could we move on to somebody else?
I do, but I notice he's sending out a lot of press releases.
Well, exactly.
He's so
and you're
far
playing,
ahead in the polls. Why is he worried?
You're playing right because he's worried. That's why. He's been listening to our program, Brian, and he knows that he could be in trouble. And so here you are spouting his press releases for him, and that's pretty much what he wants done. Perhaps we could move on to something else.
Can we talk about how NYSUT ignored him in their endorsements?
No, because I don't know anything about it. Could we talk about Tuesday's elections?
Okay, good point. Let's get back to that.
Sure.
Ohio, Michigan, the state of Washington. What's the other one? Missouri?
Kansas.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, are we back to those?
Yeah, let's do that.
Well, it's interesting. Obviously, there are all kinds of aspects of these elections that you can play with. But I think the election in Ohio in particular was a special election, and a special election in many ways, in the sense that it's in the middle of August, and the fact is I think the turnout generally was pretty low. So to be able to draw too many conclusions from this, it seems to me I'd be a little careful with that. It is interesting, though, that I think it's Franklin County, the turnout was something like 42%, which is pretty high for a primary. And in the other counties, the turnout was in the high 20s, somewhere around that. So I would say, just looking at that, the Republicans have a very good chance of holding on that district in November, because it's just a matter of turning out some of these rural areas, which are very heavily for Mr. Balderson. Now, what happens this time around, we'll have to wait and see. I see yesterday they found another 588 votes that hadn't been counted in Franklin County, and so that puts Balderson up by about 1,500 votes, something like that. So he lost maybe a couple hundred votes there. But even at that, I think I saw that there were 9,000 absentee etc. ballots out. Now that you got to distinguish between the ones that are sent out and the ones that are returned. And obviously, in terms of the ones are returned, you get some sense of how those ballots are going to fall. And in New York, and I assume in Ohio, you have to give veterans and such, or people serving in the military, a week to get their ballots in. So we'll have to wait and see how these ballots come in. But the figures I saw, there were something like 3,400 absentee ballots out there, and that's not going to be enough to overcome Balderson's lead now. Now, if there are 9,000, which is the number I saw, the other number I saw, why then it could get a lot closer. But I think that the overriding fact of this matter is that Trump pulled that election out for Mr. Balderson. Now, of course, Kasich came in and endorsed him very late in the campaign as well. But again, I think Republicans, and I think if I'm a Republican candidate, and that's going to be, some of them are pretty queasy right now, but I think I'd be going full bore supporting Trump. As he said, he's won 8 out of the 9 off-term elections here. 7 or 8 or 8 out of 9. The Republicans have won. So where are we going with this? And I think clearly in Kansas, Trump clearly pulled that election out for this guy, Kobach. Kobach is his name, I believe, right?
Right.
And he was behind in a primary with a number of candidates, and he literally pulled up and pulled ahead at the very last minute. Now he's up by only 200 votes, and there's a heck of a lot of votes cast, and I don't know how many absentee ballots, but certainly I would guess several thousand. So again, holding on to that margin is going to be close. He could lose that, but whether he loses it or not, I think it's pretty clear that Trump's coming in there and helping him definitely helped. And apparently the guy's a gung-ho, hard-right candidate, and the Democrats are looking forward to running against him, but they'll be running against him and President Trump in Kansas, and so I wouldn't get too eager. Now, again, to go back to Ohio, if Mr. Ballerson's opponent pulls within 0.5%, then it automatically goes to a recount. And I think that's what the Democrats are hanging on to here by their fingertips at this point. If they can just narrow it close enough to force a district-wide recount, then who knows? People turn in transpose figures and things of that sort. It's possible that it could turn around. But in those two elections, I don't think there's any question that Trump made a heck of a difference. And so if you're running for office, I think your best bet is to get behind Trump and let him pull you through. Now, again, in some of these districts, it's going to be very, very tempting to straddle the fence and take a moderate kind of approach. But I'm not certain, the figures show that as the wisest way to go.
Dr. Bob, we're going to take a quick break. We're going to be back. Stay with us.
You take flooring for granted, don't you? I mean, if you think about how much wear and tear you put that floor through, why would you even think about buying a cheap floor when you need one? Buy quality flooring from Mullen Factory Direct Floor Covering in Almond. Mullins buys in bulk, and that means you save money on quality flooring. They even offer 0% interest for qualified buyers. Shop over 400,000 square feet of major name brand in-stock flooring. And get it installed now. And no box store wait. Mullen Factory Direct Floor Covering in Almond. Let them floor you.
Meteorologist Gary Best says sun, clouds, showers, repeat.
You got it. That's the way it's going to be for the next several days, right into next week, Brian. We've got a front that's going to be getting hung up around us. This morning, sunrise at 6:13. The sun sets at 8:18 p.m. And we're looking at a lot of clouds during today with occasional sun. A few showers scattered around, maybe a thunderstorm. Not a washout, though. High temperature up between 75 and 80. Tonight, maybe a shower this evening, then some clouds. 55 to 60 overnight. Mix of clouds and sun for Saturday and Sunday. Passing showers and thunderstorms at times. Temperatures mostly upper 70s to about 80. And down to 60 with a few showers around on Saturday night, Brian.
Dr. Bob, in the last segment you talked about how Trump was a big success. You didn't say what a lot of the talking heads have been saying is that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was a big flop as far as her endorsements go. Do you think that's the case?
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, the press would not like that to be the case. I mean, they're pushing her as a coming star, etc. But, the voters, they're clearly out of touch with the average American voter, Democrat or Republican.
The media?
Yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous. And so the voters came in and voted, and once again, these flashes in the pan went down the tubes, and I think Crowley, the guy she beat in the primary previously, and again in that primary the turnout was almost zilch. I mean, she won with 16,000 votes, I think, and what are there, 776,000 people in a congressional district. So Crowley just kind of ignored her to his detriment, and she took advantage of that. But if he stays on the working families line going into the general election, I think she's going to she's going to lose. So it's a shame because I hate to see all these socialist, commie progressives disappear, but I'm afraid that they're going to go.
One thing that the conservative critics of Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, have been saying is that she's like Bernie Sanders. When you start analyzing her math, you realize that math isn't her thing.
Right.
As far as the economic plans go.
Right. Yeah, well, it's easy to get out there and fling out all kinds of ideas, and in her sense, I don't think she had any real hope to win. And so you can get pretty wild there. Now, of course, she's running around the country touting progressive ideas. I don't know whether she's going to get that many invites now or not, having seen all of her candidates basically lose. We'll just have to see. Again, those were primaries. They weren't general elections. Who knows? She may all of a sudden blossom force in the general election. I don't think that's going to happen, though. But I would like to see her out there campaigning, because I think that helps the Republicans quite a bit. I mean, again, you look at the effects of the economy, and people were saying, well, gee, you got this tremendous economy, and the Republicans are just barely holding on to this congressional seat. That doesn't have much effect at all here in an off-term local district election like this. I guarantee you, Trump comes in there full bore in the midterm elections, and certainly in 2020, if the economy keeps going the way it is, there's nobody that's going to be able to defeat him. And you're looking at right now, the polls are showing that black support for Trump has gone from something like, 13-14% to something like 29%. I mean, that's a death knell for the Democrats. If Trump gets anywhere around 20% of the black vote, there's nobody can beat him. Plus, obviously, Hispanic vote, I think, has gotten very, very strong as well. So the figures are looking pretty good for him, and I think some of that is bound to rub off on congressional candidates if they get on the right path with the president. And he's certainly eager to go out and support him, that's for sure. So I think you really should take advantage of that.
Okay, before we go, the Mueller investigation,
which is running into more and more heavy weather. I think that from the Democrats' perspective, whether he comes in with any indictments or whatever he comes in with, their whole approach here would be to keep Mueller from making any statements, making any decisions and charges, and just leave him hanging there as kind of a cloud, continual cloud over Trump and his administration. So can you imagine what Trump would be doing right now if he didn't have this investigation going on? I mean,
how much farther he would have went?
Yeah, he'd be gone gangbusters. I mean, so from the Democrats' point of view, it's just a kind of cloud that they can depend on, and maybe, some voters are paying some attention to it.
All right, Doc, we're out of time. Got to thank you so much for coming in and giving us your words of wisdom.
I hope you'll take my advice, Brian.